Hello, I am Cheryl Ann Kriego, co-owner and director at Chef Kent Getson Consulting, and I'm here today with co-owner Chef Kent Getson.
Hey there.
Today we want to talk a little bit about sodium. So schools are extremely concerned about their use of sodium, but we've noticed that the pre-packaged heat and serve foods that they use don't they have sodium in them? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course they do. It's pretty. They're smart, you know. I mean, they want people to enjoy the food that they're making at the factories, right? And we're Americans, and we have a palate that is adjusted to a certain level of flavor profile in our foods because we're pretty accustomed to eating food that's made for us, as a culture, and that's kind of unfortunate, I guess. Maybe we should probably cook more for ourselves. But bottom line is that that stuff comes pre-salted and to taste reasonably good, and of course they are under scrutiny too to make sure they're under certain milligrams of sodium. But the thing is I go to schools all the time, and people say they even say it proudly, we don't even have salt in our building. It's like, okay. There's no reason to salt the chicken nuggets. They're already pre-seasoned, but if you are going to do any scratch cooking, then sodium or salt, let's just call it salt. Sodium is, we can get weird with sodium, but salt is like one of the most important ingredients in cooking, really. To be honest.
Mm-hmm. So how is it that you teach about sodium then?
Well, really the thing that I'm really passionate about is getting more whole, fresh foods into schools. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't mean real food. You hear all the time, well, we really serve real food here. And of course, the stuff that the manufacturer is making is real food. But the thing about it is, it's not been recently made from whole ingredients, and maybe even whole local ingredients. So let's really focus on whole local ingredients. And when I say whole, I mean whole foods that are just simply the way they were farmed,
like
they were
whole vegetables.
Sure, right. They were harvested, and this is what they look like, mm-hmm. In a box. They look like a bunch of zucchinis or tomatoes or pineapples or bananas or whatever. Those are whole foods, right?
And even meat.
Oh yeah, any type of ingredient that's just in its most basic form. So when you take ingredients that are in those basic form, they don't have additional sodium that gives them a little bit of a flavor boost, Mm-hmm. And of course you can cook without salt, or you can cook with minimal salt. But cooking without salt really is going to be disappointing when your kids are going to be probably eating it compared to the pizza that you're serving that day, or you have 2 choices or 3 choices on your menu, and you're going to try roasting potatoes and carrots, and you don't put any salt on them. And then the kids are going to taste them, and they're going to be like, that's really boring or bland, or I don't really like that very much. Where just a little bit of salt and a little bit of attention to that really makes things so much better. Mm-hmm. And it brings out the flavor of other things. It's not the only flavor thing. Your tongue fires on all kinds of interesting things. You have Cook's arsenal of flavor builders are like acids and fats and salt and sweet. And salt and sweet come from all kinds of different things. Mm-hmm. We can add salt by the salt shaker. We can add salt by the cheese. We can add salt by condiments.
Mm-hmm. We should do some other videos on those other flavor profiles.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I have a little story, actually.
Oh, yeah?
When I used to teach preschool, I liked to make bread with the students. And one day I accidentally forgot to add the salt. And when I served it, everybody was like politely trying to eat the bread. And one little girl said, "This tastes like nothing." And I tasted it, and sure enough, without salt, bread tastes like nothing.
Bread tastes like nothing. Salt is so important. And I'm looking at all of you lovely school food service workers out there, and you are hammered all the time about salt. Like, you can't use salt, it's illegal, you're going to kill somebody. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but it's not really an exaggeration. I mean, we get hammered with so many messages about salt that you're afraid to bring out the salt shaker because you're gonna, it's gonna be illegal or immoral or wrong, or you're gonna hurt the kids or blah, 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 blah. But as an adult, you know how you like your food, and you like it to have some flavor. And kids are just as sophisticated as we are when it comes to, not as sophisticated, but they're very sophisticated when it comes to eating. They're bombarded by food messages all the time in their everyday life, and they exposed to all kinds of different food styles and varieties all the time in their whole life. So I mean, like, kids are pretty savvy. So if you're going to start to do more scratch cooking, then it makes so much sense to use some salt. Okay, so it's super important. So, like, for instance, I teach roasting vegetables as like one of my main things because it's so easy to roast pretty much any vegetable on the planet with just like a few simple tips. Big pieces, a big bowl to mix them in, a little bit of oil to make them shiny, salt as a bare minimum ingredient, just salt. You can go all kinds of crazy with everything else too, like herbs and spices and everything. But if you're just gonna say, get started with roasting, and I'm gonna go roast potatoes, because everybody loves roasted potatoes. Big chunks of potato, a little oil to make them shiny, enough salt to give them a little flavor. Lay them out on a sheet pan in one kind of a single layer or so. Roast them really hot, 425, 450, until they're nice and brown, and they're gonna blow kids' minds. But if you do them with one difference, don't put salt on them, the kids are gonna be like, what the heck? What the heck, man? So, I mean, that's how I use salt in schools, is I use it to taste, and of course, I provide recipes, and you can get really tight with your salt. Like, you can have like very specific amounts of salt on your recipe that you never vary from, and you have that dialed in, and that's fine. But just don't not use salt.
And I was going to ask if you had any simple recipes in mind that you wanted to share, but you've already shared how to roast vegetables.
Yes, and if you go back and just listen to that part again, you'll be able to roast any vegetable on the planet. But I'll put up a bunch of, and I have one in particular that's really good. It's a roasted cauliflower. I helped develop it for a district in Arizona, and they were going for something like buffalo wings. That was their jam, their idea. So, but they wanted to do with cauliflower, so I helped them come up with a way to do that really well. It's tasty, and it's made from it's based on commodity salsa, so it's easy to access for most people, inexpensive, and very tasty. So we'll provide that recipe for you also along with this video.
All right, you can find those in the notes below, and also links to where else to learn more about Chef KandCA.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shalane.
You can't include that part.
I know, that's why I waited.